what's the difference between a leadership mindset even and a visionary mindset? Sometimes we don't really know the difference. So what I often see after working with hundreds of leaders at Uber, Airbnb, Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen, WTW, I've worked with so many companies. This is what I can tell you. Many leaders struggle every single time they move up in their leadership because they're not sure how to operate at this next level. They're thinking about how they operated previously, and most of the time, leaders are considering themselves as doers, as their output is what brings them greater value. And what I want to say is that your output is not what brings you value, especially if you are setting the vision for your company. So if you are a founder, if you're a strategic advisor, if you are a senior executive and you're operating at that level where you're having to make strategic decisions, if you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, maybe you're a solopreneur, it doesn't matter. Regardless of where you're at, the thing that you have to start to consider for yourself is, what type of leader do I want to be? What type of leader am I now? And what type of leader does my company need in order for us to be moving forward, hitting all of those marks that we're looking to make? When we're thinking only about ourselves, what it is that we are contributing to, how we contribute back to the organization, what we're doing is we're effectively limiting ourselves, because we have capacities, right? We have maximum capacities and efficiencies that we're allowed to operate in, because there's only so much that we can know. There's only so much that we can do. There's only so many skills that we can have. And not all of those skills are going to be in our wheelhouse. So if we're limiting ourselves based on what we currently know, then we're not allowing for ourselves to step into the visionary that we are supposed to be. Whether or not you're at the senior executive level of a large company, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a startup founder, you're setting the North Star for the company in which it is moving toward. So there's a couple of things that we need to consider in here in relation to how you're moving a company forward, considerations that you need to make, how to step into that role for yourself in a greater capacity. So let's dive into that a little bit more so that you can be aware of what that looks like for you. So one of the first things that I want you to consider is, again, where is your wheelhouse? Where are your natural strengths? Where do you show up and shine? If you're limiting yourself to being able to be the one who does it all, especially entrepreneurs and founders, I'm looking at you, then you're not going to be operating at your peak performance, because you're going to be spending a lot of time, a lot of energy spinning your wheels, trying to fill in gaps that were never intended for you to fill. You have natural strengths. You have things that you bring uniquely to the table that enable you to set the vision, set the strategic direction, set the tone for where the company is headed. So I want you to consider how you step outside of yourself and start looking at your business, your company, as a founder, as someone who is looking at the whole view, the whole big picture, and asking yourself, what is it that the founder of this company needs to be doing to move the needle forward for the rest of the organization? What are the decisions that need to be made? What do they need to be operating as? How do they need to be engaging with other people? What's necessary? What types of decisions? Because when we stop thinking about what we bring, what we're doing, and trying to be the center of all of it, think of yourself on the sidelines, looking at this whole room around you. Rather being in the center, I like to think of a being at a really large conference or a networking event. And when you're in the center of a networking event, you can't see very clearly through the crowds of people, right? You're in the middle of it. But if you're off to the sidelines, you can see more of what's happening. Now let's say, for instance, that this conference has a balcony view. Maybe it has a second story or a floor that you can even look down onto the conference floor. What's your vantage point from up there? What can you see uniquely as a founder that you can't see when you are putting yourself in the center of the room? This is really key for making decisions, for negotiations, for hiring, for understanding where are the gaps in the business that need to be filled. And if you can't fill them all, then what needs to happen so that they are, so that there aren't blind spots that the company is operating within? You're the North Star. You're the visionary. You're the one who helps to keep things moving forward. That's the most important job of all, because you're setting direction and you're driving the pace at which innovation is taking place. So where most people get held back, why most companies start to get strangled, is because the founder feels as though they are still one of the most important players, but in terms of being a doer rather than an architect. I want you to consider as yourself as an architect, how you're architecting and orchestrating your environment, your organization. Maybe you're a conductor. However, it helps you to consider how you're making all of these moving parts work in concert with one another. So that's number one, is really considering for yourself, where am I inserting myself unnecessarily? And where am I trying to fill in all of these different gaps? And where are there areas that maybe are not inside of my wheelhouse that I'm sitting here trying to figure out, rather than outsourcing for that knowledge, outsourcing for that insight, or for someone to go and take care of it? This leads us to the next piece. So if you're a startup founder, maybe you have a budget, maybe you have investors, you're looking to fill roles. You're looking to fill seats, to fill spots. If you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, this is where you start to recognize, who can I outsource to, who can I pay, who can I partner with, who can I invest in that's going to help me run my company more efficiently and help it to scale. If you're a senior executive, who can you start to lean on as a trusted advisor, as a right-hand person, as a partner, so that you can start taking action, making decisions with trusted advisors, with key stakeholders. So there's two things that start to take place. Number one is there's a fear around needing to have all of the answers. If we don't have the answers, then we must be failures. We must be doing something wrong. And that's where imposterism starts to come in. That's where we start making bad decisions, bad negotiations, because we're trying to kind of fake it till we make it. We're trying to front on areas that we don't really know very much about, or we don't really have a clue. If we can remove the need to know, if we can remove the need to be the one that has all of it figured out, it enables us to truly lean on other individuals. We can start asking those questions, and we can start to operate more freely because we have trusted advisors. We have other people that we've hired who are experts in certain areas. And we also don't feel the need, we're not threatened. A lot of leaders start to feel threatened when they start to move up because they start to question their relevancy. Where do I fit in? What am I even good for? Where am I being used? What you're needing to consider is, again, you're the orchestrator. So all of these people are looking to you, and you don't have to fill all of these roles. The more that you can step outside, the more strategic that you can be, the better negotiator you are, the more clarity you have in the decision making that you're making, The less that risk and risk aversion becomes a challenge, because you're making decisions based on looking at all of these key factors, whether lead and lag indicators, what are your KPIs, what are the indicators that are showing up in terms of signs of success for your business, all of these various pieces that you can start to look at with greater clarity, because you're not stuck in your own mind thinking about whether you know something or not. The next piece is, who are you considering? Now, sometimes we think that we know who the right people to consider are. Maybe we think that we know who our target audience is, and that's who we're hyper focused on. Maybe we think that we know who really matters, or our clients, or our customers, or maybe it's our investors. But one of the biggest things that you can do is to create a stakeholder map, is to really start to outline for yourself, who are the key stakeholders that your company needs to consult with and needs to take into consideration with every single decision that's made. Now, maybe they're not a party to every decision, but every decision needs to consider who needs to be included. Now, if that's investors, if it's a board of directors, if it's an executive suite, if it's clients, if it's customers, if it's your internal organization, your teams, your strategists, your advisors, who are the various people? Now, the next thing to consider is, as we were doing a systemic team, as we operate in systemic team coaching, I'm stuttering, and red team thinking as well. What we consider is, number one, is everyone on the same page? Do we all know what we're moving toward? And if we don't know what we're moving toward, then we're going to be moving in dispersed directions. And so this is where we start to consider, what are some of the biases that maybe different individuals in our organization, within our key stakeholders, might have, because they all have their own vantage point as well, and they're operating from their own views. They're making decisions from their own views. You as a visionary founder, you as that leader, have to be able to look at all of the different pieces, the different segments that are coming in, and make heads and tails around it, and help to iron it out, help to create a path forward where everybody understands this is the direction. Now, one of the ways that you can do this is by thinking future back and outside in. Now, what does that really mean? Well, Professor Hawkins talks about it in this way. If we're making decisions based on a future state and from an outside-in perspective, meaning we're going from that balcony view, we're going from that higher level view and vantage point, and we're considering, where are we going to be in the next 5 years, 3 years? Now, I'd really like to say that the way that the market has been shifting, the way that the industry is shifting right now, honestly, I think it's a year from now. And in some cases, it's like next quarter. Where are we going to need to be next quarter? But if we're considering for a moment, where is it that we need to be thinking, looking at, to base our decisions on around now? That's going to be a huge plus, a huge bonus for the way that you're operating, because many times organizations and leaders base the decisions on the past. They base them on things that have worked for them in the past, things that show a track record of success. And there's really nothing wrong with looking at it in that way. But are you considering whether the past aligns with where you're needing to be in the future? And considering how rapidly everything is changing right now, it's important to note, what is it that we want to see for this company in the next quarter, in the next year, so that you can set the strategic vision and everybody knows what they're moving toward. Otherwise, you risk having yourself or the rest of the organization all moving off in little shoots, off into new shiny projects, new shiny ideas, new shiny technology, or whatever that looks like, thinking this will be the thing that solves the problem, but you're not tying it back to that mission, to that vision that everyone is invested in. So you want to be the one who, corrals everyone in, and you have to be able to do that from an outside perspective and considering where you're needing to be in the future. If you're in the middle of all of it, It's going to be very hard to have a clear view of what that's going to look like and what you're going to need and the decisions that are going to be key and crucial, which also means the decisions in what not to invest in, what not to pursue as you're hyper-focused on how you're moving the needle in the direction that you want the company to be. So this mindset shift, this reframe, really is about removing ourselves. Now, what does this have to do with personal branding? More and more companies are looking to leaders to be the face of the organization, or multiple leaders. Advertising alone isn't getting the same amount of reach or the same kind of recognition as personal thought leaders, which means that whether or not you are behind a company brand, or you've created your own company brand, or you are an entrepreneur, you are the face of the company still. And that's where developing your own thought leadership, your own branding, your own ideas really can be very valuable when it comes to how to lead as a visionary. Because if we don't understand what our unique value proposition is, why we're uniquely positioned to be in the position that we're in, why we have some authority in these areas, we're not going to know how to lead a whole organization or a company or a strategy forward effectively. Even if you are right now operating all on your own or with a really lean team. So I want you to consider, how can you start to really analyze what your role is within the company, how you're operating it as a company, not you as the center, not you as the founder leader who has to do everything, but you as the strategic advisor, the visionary, setting the pace, setting the tone for the future, and really shifting your mindset from having to be in the middle of all of it to having this grander vision, this outside perspective, something that you can see clearly for yourself so that you can start operating from a place where you know who your key advisors are, who your key stakeholders are, who you trust, how you establish internal trust, how you hire for the right roles. Not people who are like you, but people who are going to complement you, complement your leadership, complement the organization, and even challenge you, even challenge your thinking. Because when you have that kind of trust, now you don't have to have all of the answers. Together you will find solutions. And that's the difference between being a visionary leader or someone who needs to lead by authority. You don't need to have all of the answers. What you need to know is understand how you can get to some of those answers and how you elicit the right people in the right places to help move you and get you there. I want you to consider, who are some leaders, who are some people that you look to that you admire, and why? What about them tells you that they are effective and efficient and visionary in the way that they lead their companies, lead their organizations? And if you're not sure, do some homework around that so that you can do some internal reflection around the type of leader that you want to be and what types of decisions you think that they're making that you could start adopting in your own leadership brand. How can you start morphing into that type of leader where people are looking to you, they're respecting you, and they're looking to you for strategic direction so that they can have someone or something to follow? When we have a mission or we have a company and a vision, it's not created for the sake of having it. It's created because it's doing something. It's solving a problem. It's helping people in a way that's beyond our own personal capacity. And that's what people get behind. And when you can help people to understand why this company exists, what it is that you are there to provide, it's not about you. It's about you and the company and everyone collectively creating greater change, greater impact. And when you're building a legacy brand, this is crucial for you to understand and to know and to embody. So if you're thinking about how do you embody this to a greater extent, well, we created the Powerhouse Legacy Collective for this very reason, because leading at this level, leading as a visionary, can feel a little bit scary and a little bit daunting even at times, because we have to gut check ourselves constantly. We have to be able to put ourselves in a mindset where we're asking ourselves those hard questions and really countering some of the ideas that we have and finding the right types of networks and the right partnerships and the right people who can be in our corner. And sometimes that's not the people who are even inside of our organization. Sometimes it has to be outside advisors, outside counsel that we can then take. So we created this community so that you could have a place not only to up-level your own leadership brand, up-level your leadership in general, understand your executive presence, how you start developing thought leadership ideas, how you start writing about that, how you start understanding your leadership value proposition, how you create authority statements, how you start to speak and communicate in such a way where, you are the authority, but also how you start to connect with other leaders who are doing the same things, other VPs, other founders, other entrepreneurs, who are all sharpening their skills. And that's what we wanted to create. So if this sounds interesting, if you're wanting to up-level your leadership and you don't want to do it alone, and you want to understand how to effectively be that visionary that your company is going to need, then I invite you to come join us. The end of the month is the end of our founding membership. Right now it's $67 a month, which includes access to the Legacy Vault, which includes more trainings on effective communication, negotiation, networking, partnerships, speaking. There's a bunch of training in there. So that's going to be included. It's going to end at the end of the month, and then it will go up to $99 a month. So if you want to get in as a founder, then you'll have access to all of that for as long as you're a member. And you can start connecting with other entrepreneurs, you can start meeting other people, and you can start working on your own leadership from a vantage point that is even external to yourself. So many times we are blind to ourselves. We are blind to how we show up. We are blind to what others see in us, for good and for bad. Many times we don't see the good in ourselves either. And when we start to do this type of work, that's what personal branding and executive branding is really about, is understanding what we uniquely bring to the table so that we can own it, so that we can lead more effectively. And we believe it. Most importantly, we believe it as well. When we have uncertainty, when we have a lack of confidence, it shows. And so we want to be able to step forward and help guide the people, help guide our company, help guide our clients, or whomever that looks like, in a way that feels authentic, in a way that feels natural, and helps to really build not only your legacy, but the legacy of your company, the legacy of the impact that you want to be a part of, so that when you're looking back, you feel proud. You feel like the efforts that you made were worthwhile. So I invite you to come check it out. You can go to the URL powerhouselegacycollective.com. We'll put it into the show notes as well. Come, you can see. I'd love to have you join us. So I kind of threw a lot out here, a lot of ideas. I want to know, which pieces do you not have some clarity around? Which pieces do you maybe have some questions around that you would like to ask? Which areas are you going to take away and try to see if you can work on or think about a little bit differently? Are you going to lay out a stakeholder map for yourself and really consider, who are those key trusted advisors? Who are those people that you need to be consulting with before you make decisions, so that you know that you're making sound decisions that are moving things forward in the direction that you truly want it to go?